What do I buy for my financial future? What do I buy? Yeah, this is a really good question. So I've been a real estate agent for 33 years now, and I just saw this survey that came through, and I thought I'd share it with you because I find it fascinating. I invest in other things just like lots of you guys that are watching this do as well too. And I've got bonds, I've got stocks, I've got real estate, I've got gold. But the survey that just recently went out from Gallup, and you can look at the screen right up here, you can see what they're saying, is people are saying that real estate is the best investment to buy for your financial future. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a second here, but this is the 8th year in a row that this has come out this way, where real estate's been the highest choice for people saying, gee, I think I should be buying more real estate for my financial future. What's interesting, as you can see on this chart up here too, is that 41% is what it's saying. 41% of consumers are saying it's real estate, and that's the highest it's ever been in history. So, real estate's been the top of the list for 11 years, but 41% are saying now real estate, and that's the highest it's ever been. That's a lot. So why do you think people are saying that? Well, I find it kind of interesting, and the way that I like to equate it is buying a piece of stock. I live in Portland, Oregon, so one of our biggest employees here is Intel Nike. Let's pick on Nike for a second. So let's say that I want to go and buy $1,000 worth of Nike stock, and let's make it $100,000 worth of Nike stock because that's closer to numbers that we can talk about with houses. I can't really go into the bank and say, "Hey, bank, can you, if I give you 25,000 bucks, can you give me 75,000, and I'm going to go buy this piece of stock?" Now, I know there's margins and stuff like that, so technically you could. But let's just say that you take this $100,000 in cash and you go and buy a piece of Nike stock, which, by the way, has been a wonderful stock. I own Nike. It's a great product. It's continuing to get better. So I'm a big Nike believer. But my point being is that you can't really go into a bank and say, here's 25%, give me 75% more, loan me the money, I'm going to go buy that stock. But let's just say that you did. So now you own this $100,000 worth of Nike stock, whether it's financed or not, doesn't really matter for the purpose of this message. Nobody's paying you to live in it. Nobody's paying you to rent it back from you. There's no tax advantages for owning it. And when you sell it, you've got a capital gains tax. So here's where real estate comes in. You see, if you're thinking about buying an investment property, now I know there's people laughing at me right now saying, Rob, come on, man, you're in Portland, Oregon. You can't buy a rental house for 100,000 bucks, and you're right. I mean, you could years ago, and luckily my wife and I were smart enough to buy a few. But there are markets around the country where you can get homes similar to that. I own rental properties in other markets. There's some wonderful middle-class cities such as Indianapolis and Kansas City and Tucson and Oklahoma City and areas like that, where you can still today buy a nice lower middle class rental property for under $200,000. But let's use that $100,000 as an example again because it makes the point better. So what I can do is I can go to the bank and I can say, hey bank, I got $25,000 over here and I want to buy that rental house over there. Will you loan me $75,000? And guess what? They will. So you're margining that property. So you'll give them 25,000 bucks. They'll loan you the 75. There's your 100,000. You go and close on the rental property. But here's the cool part, you see. When you own that rental property, you're going to rent it to a tenant. So the tenant is actually going to be renting that from you and paying your money to live in your investment. You can't really do that with stocks. Nobody's going to pay me to use my 100,000 bucks worth of Nike stock. So that's one of the advantages. Now, of course, there's all sorts of other advantages too. Your tenants are paying your mortgage. Hopefully that's the case. It's not always the case, but hopefully that's the case. Your tenants are paying your mortgage. So they give you the rent every month. You take the mortgage amount, you pay off the mortgage. Maybe next year you raise the rent $100. Well, what I always suggest is let's take that $100 and put it down on the mortgage. And so you keep buying down your mortgage and getting it to pay off earlier. There's also tax code issues like you can depreciate the house. The way that one works is let's take a $300,000 house as a for instance. If you've got a $300,000 property, and let's just say that the government says the land is worth $100,000 and the house is worth $200,000, well, you can depreciate that house over 27 and a half years. That's much like if you've got a small business and you had to run out and buy a computer for $1,000, $2,000, whatever it is. You depreciate all of that in 1 year. Well, in the case of a house, you depreciate it over 27 and a half years. So you take $200,000, divide it by 27 and a half. By the way, I should say, before I continue, I am not a CPA. I'm not a tax specialist of any kind. I am an experienced real estate agent who's bought and sold a lot of houses in my marketplace. You should always get professional tax advice from your tax advisor, your CPA, whoever it is you're using. So anyway, carrying back onto that, and also by the way, subscribe. If you want to get my videos, please subscribe. I put them out every several days, and most people say they're very informative, and I have a lot of followers. And feel free to share with your friends as well. I'd really appreciate that. So the 27.5 years, divide that, you divide the 200,000 by 27.5, that's how much you're depreciating it every year. So while you may look and say, I'm not making a lot of money on this place, in reality, the government is helping you make money on it. So you see, that's one of the reasons why people think that real estate is such a good investment. Primarily, the survey was talking about primary residences. So let's roll back on that one for a minute. You see, historically speaking, houses have pretty much always gone up. Yeah, I know, there was a terrible recession. I lived through it. There's been several recessions before that, but in most of those other recessions, you can see by this slide, houses actually went up in value. They didn't go down in value. What are we seeing for the future? Well, I'm not an expert. I sometimes joke and say my crystal ball broke in 2007, but the reality is there's a shortage of houses being built. There's a shortage of land to build them on, develop land. It takes a long time to turn a piece of dirt into an actual house with a for sale sign in front. So a lot of builders, developers are kind of nervous about building. We're way behind on our construction. I showed in a previous video that we're way like 50% short of the amount of new construction we should have. So your existing house should continue to go up in value. Now, will there be some bad years? There's people going to make notes on here saying, well, there's been some bad years and I lost money. I agree. There were bad years and I lost money. But pretty much everybody that bought a house 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, over time, they've all made money. And that's why people feel that housing is a better investment than gold, bonds, or stocks, per, again, this slide that I'd shown earlier. The last piece that I will say here is that I own rental properties, I own primary property, I own a vacation home. I do also own gold. I do also own stocks, and I do also own bonds. So I think it's very important to diversify. So any questions, robertroblevy.com is my email, www.roblevy.com is my website, my phone number's on here. Give us a call. And if you're in different parts of the country, I had said I'm from Portland, Oregon. I'm a well-connected realtor. I've been in this business, like I said, almost 33 years as a top realtor in my marketplace. I connect with other top realtors in marketplaces all around the country. So if you're looking for an agent in your marketplace to help you sell or buy a house, give me a call. I'd be happy to research that person and refer them to you. Thank you so much for watching.